The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
In this context, our next interview seems to be very timely. Brock Bierman, a visiting fellow for democracy initiatives at the German Marshall Fund of the United States, who prior to that served as the assistant administrator for USAID's Bureau for Europe and Eurasia, including Georgia specifically, has been visiting Tbilisi, and The Checkpoints hosted him in Forbes Georgia studio for a brief interview. Give Georgia a Free Trade Agreement was the headline of his recent piece on Georgia in The Hill, where Bierman is an opinion contributor. Why is it a good time to negotiate an FTA deal with the US, and how this can contribute to the decrease in polarization? Here are Brock Bierman's arguments. Thank you for being with us and taking our questions. I just read your piece on The Hill, and you are saying that Georgia needs the FTA with the US now. Yes. What do you mean, and why do you think Georgia is ready for it?
Well, first of all, I think the free trade agreement will help Georgia's economy. As I mentioned in my article, Georgia has the opportunity to develop a free trade agreement with the United States that will help its products within the United States, and it will help the economy. It will help increase goods going to the United States. And I also think that there's really no downside for the United States in terms of the free trade agreement. I think the United States can show a great deal of support for this country right now under the extreme circumstances in Ukraine, and I think that it's a win-win for both the United States and for Georgia.
But then what is impeding the process then, if it's a win-win situation?
Well, I think that there's, in terms of a win-win situation, I don't think there's really any impediment at this point. I think the Biden administration should take a clear look at this. They've only been in office for just about a year now, and I think it's probably a good time for them to help Georgia, given the circumstances, again, what's going on in Ukraine, and looking to help this country during a very difficult time. I think it'll also be a very uniting issue. I've had a chance to talk to a number of leaders here in Georgia over the course of the last 5 days, and there is real support about the free trade agreement, and I think that it will help small businesses and it will help the economic development. In fact, just the discussion has given a lot of hope to people here in Georgia, and I think also that if the United States were to enter into a free trade agreement, it would help the GEL, it would help businesses, and it would help private sector investment.
So you think FTA with the US could be one area where this unity works
it will absolutely
decreases
work.
The polarization?
Here in Georgia, absolutely. I think that there hasn't been a single person that I've talked to from all of the political parties, from all of the civil societies, that haven't said that an FTA is something that they all agree will have a huge impact here, and that will have not just an impact on the economy, but an impact with their relationship, a morale builder, a goodwill message from a country that has had a strong relationship with Georgia over the last 30 years.
Just a month ago, we had the opportunity to ask questions to the U.S. ambassador here in Georgia, Kelly Degnan, and she said that right now FTAs in general are not on the agenda of the Biden administration. That was one point. And the other point was that probably this FTA with Georgia would have more symbolic value rather than economic value. What is your take on that?
Well, first off, I agree that it is very symbolic. I agree that it will show that the United States cares about Georgia and that the United States is here to support Georgia, not just now, but into the future. But I also believe that economically speaking, it'll give opportunity for small businesses to provide products to the United States. And given the huge market, right, that exists in the United States, and how small if you will, the amount of product coming out of Georgia to the United States would be, it won't have any impact whatsoever in terms of products coming into the U.S. In fact, it'll provide variety. It'll provide great. In fact, just looking at the wine, I think the Georgian wine market here in this country would be welcomed in the United States, and I think those are the types of things that will help Georgia succeed economically. I've also been told by people who are economists that it could have an impact overnight in the value of the gel.
You linked very interestingly what is the situation in Ukraine right now, and it seemed to me, maybe I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to me that you put it as an also as kind of an opportunity for Georgia,
right,
for these types of talks and discussions. Yeah. How so?
So look, I know the ambassador said, you talked to her about a month ago.
Yes.
Well, I think that was before what was going on in Ukraine.
Yes, of course.
So clearly, things have changed. And I think that right now the United States needs to take into consideration all of its tools to be able to help this country. And that means all types of tools, whether it's economic or otherwise. And at the end of the day, an economic tool such as the free trade agreement will give Georgia a great boost. And it will also, what I think, again, provide the Georgian people with the knowledge and feeling that the United States is here and is supporting the country.
Would you say that in this case, for Georgia to be granted FTA from the U.S., Georgia has to take a clear side where it stands?
Well, I think that it's very clear what Vladimir Putin is doing in Ukraine, and I think it's very clear that he is killing innocent people. He's killing children, he's killing families, he's bombing schools, he's bombing hospitals, and it's very clear where Georgia needs to stand behind.
Today the context is that the world is talking more of economic sanctions rather than providing some kind of economic opportunities. Mm-hmm. So how do you see this FTA talks with Georgia fit into this overall global picture that we have economic-wise?
Well, I think obviously right now, Georgia has an FTA with China, FTA with the EU, and it makes just more sense to have an FTA with the United States, and it will help them spur private sector investment. It will help Georgia attract companies here to expand their footprint. It will help send more product to overseas. It'll create more jobs. It'll create more benefits to the overall economy. And I think right now, given the circumstances and the uncertainty with the crisis in Ukraine, this is the perfect time for Georgia to get a boost. And also I think it's very important, and we didn't talk about this, but it's very important to send a message to Russia. Their disinformation campaign, to me, has been very clear when I've been talking to various public officials or private sector entrepreneurs or people within the civil society. The Russians are winning, if you will, the disinformation campaign here in Georgia, and that's very unfortunate. They've spelled a number of aspects that the United States is not really here to support, and I believe they are. There were a number of people who supported the free trade agreement over the last several years, and we'd like to see, I think that Georgia needs a free trade agreement with the United States.
Yes, and given your background, given your experience also working with Georgia, and also knowing the U.S. stance towards Georgia very well, is it realistic to actually start these talks, and what time frame would you give?
Well, look, I think the President of the United States right now is looking for every tool that he can possibly use to help not just help Georgia, but also help countries in this region. And so this is one of those tools that he should be looking at to help specifically this country. And again, I think Georgia is at risk. Clearly, you've got Russian troops here occupying 20% of the country, and Putin has sent a very clear message what his intent is. And so we have to do everything we possibly can in the United States to help Georgia. It's a free country, a democratic country, a country where people have liberty, and we need to protect that liberty, and we need to continue to support Georgia's Western intentions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.